What's up, rock stars? How are you? And welcome to another episode of Rocket Live. I really appreciate each and every one of you who join me every Tuesday to watch and participate as I get to interview another amazing guest and hear their story, hear all about what they're doing and how they're helping others. So I really appreciate all of you who are checking us out live right now. Thank you to everybody who will be watching the replay of this and eventually listening to the audio version of this episode. If you're watching this on YouTube, please do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. And wherever else you're watching this, please send me a like, let us know that you're watching, and feel free to reshare this episode with anybody in your network. I am super happy, super stoked today to be talking to Stacy Sherman. And Stacy is, once again, another amazing person that I've had the opportunity to meet on the Clubhouse app. It's truly really a great app, and it's been a really amazing way for me to meet so many new people. And it just so happens to me that Stacy's also a fellow New Jerseyan.
Yes.
Great. So I had to get on an app to talk about we're meeting people from around the world, only to meet somebody else from New Jersey.
Yes, and in Clubhouse, we're talking to people globally. So it was like, it really felt like next door talking to you.
I know. It's pretty crazy how that works out. So, but I'm really excited to have you on, and I've had a real amazing opportunity to have been in rooms where Stacy's talking, presenting, co-modding, and I got to tell you, she is really an authority on customer experience, CX, which we're going to be talking to her about, and she's going to fill us all in what that is and why it's important for your business and how it can give you the competitive edge. So without further ado, let's dive into it. So Stacy, why don't you give us a little bit of background about yourself, and then start talking to us a little bit about what CX is.
Yes. So I am passionate about customer experience, which also has to do with employee experience because they go hand in hand, and doing it right. And when I say that, it's about humanizing business for the greater good. And it's a real intentional practice and framework. Doesn't happen by itself or automatically. Right. And so, yeah, I mean, I fell into the field. I was always in marketing and sales my whole career, and digital, and CX fell in my lap, and I stuck with it. And yeah, helping others do it right.
Yeah, which is so important. I'm a big believer in CX because it's one of the things that I truly really feels like. And I know it's so easy to say, oh, we provide an outstanding customer experience, but it's one thing to say it, but to really put it into like a true practice and fully understanding like what a true customer experience is like. And I've been a big fan of books like Hug Your Customer. And of course, the one book that I truly have love and I've read so many times, Delivering Happiness by Tony Hsieh, the former Zappos CEO. And so those are books to me that have always spoken to me and have really truly talked about like a true level of customer experience. So why don't you talk a little bit more about what that means for you? What does doing CX right mean?
Yes. So it is about a holistic journey, really walking in the customer's shoes. How will they learn about your brand? How are they going to buy? Is it e-commerce? Is it a retail store? Is it a sales rep? Defining all these different touch points. How are they going to get their product or service? How are they going to pay? How are they going to get help? And that's the traditional word of customer service. How they're going to get help. But the journey is the whole CX framework, which in the end determines whether a customer is going to stay or leave, and even worse, tell others if they're unhappy. So CX is in a holistic approach. Customer service is one touch point, and you've got to measure it, and you've got to do it right.
Yeah, I love you. You said a few really key things in there. And I think the first one I'd like to focus in on is how you're talking about a holistic approach. Because I think it's that thing that it's not, you can come in and you can say, hey, here, follow this blueprint and things like that. But it has to be part of a company's DNA to begin with. Like, you have to create a culture. It's not just a snap of your fingers type of a thing. You really have to buy into it and believe in it fully and wholeheartedly and develop an entire company culture, regardless of how small your company is. I mean, you could be a solopreneur like myself and still create a culture of outstanding, customer client experience as well. So, I wanted to hear your more thoughts about that from your perspective.
Yes. So a lot of times people do think, oh, this is just a corporate thing.
Right.
It is a corporate thing, but it is not just a corporate thing. So let me elaborate. Two things. One, small doctor's office, 5 people. I remember working with someone and he said, can you look at my practice? We're getting some bad reviews online. I'm not sure why. Well, here's the thing. You have to also look at the inside. If, for example, if it's really hard for me, a patient, to get an appointment and the communication is bad between the front office and the doctor, I don't care how great the doctor is. If it's not easy and a low level of effort from beginning to end, I'm not going to go there. Even though I love the doctor, it's not that alone. And then same thing with a solopreneur. A lot of times I have found that I'll give business, let's say to an entrepreneur who's starting out, but has a whole backlog of, a back team, maybe 5 reps and Upwork teams. And what happens is those people don't deliver on the promise. So you're the face, of the brand. You have this back help. But if they delay or don't deliver on the promise, you are the one that I'm not going to buy from. So if you don't design the customer experience from beginning to end and really do it and measure that my expectations are met, it doesn't work.
Yeah, great point there. And you said another really great key thing there, which was measurement, right? Measuring the reactions and here's a big brain, how the client feels, which I think so many times as business owners, we fall into the trap, the assumption that, well, we know how our client feels, so we'll do this. But meanwhile, have you actually asked the client? Well, yeah, we asked them. Well, when? Well, about 5 years ago or 10 years ago, or, 2 years ago, we did this great survey and hey, that's great. 2 years ago is a long time ago. And we all know how fast clients' expectations can change because it changes like the wind. It's people expect different things, different levels of service. They change, their attitudes change. You have to change and continually evolve with that. And even communicating with your clients on a regular basis is providing a customer experience, taking that time, right?
Yes. So let's elaborate on that for a second, because there are tons of CX best practices and really the true methodologies to do it. But what we're talking about here is just the basics. Right. So you got to get the basics right. So when let's say, there's a car dealer and you're waiting for your car and you're waiting for the mechanic to tell you what's the status, you're waiting. Well, it's even if they don't know, they're behind. By picking up the phone and telling you, listen, we're running late, you're still going to be frustrated. However, you're going to be more patient. You're going to be more empathetic and understanding than if you didn't tell them anything.
Right.
That's customer experience at the basic level.
Right. Which sometimes, and I know you see this, I mean, even when you're not doing what you do, just going about like normal life. Yes. I mean, how many people do you see screw that up?
Too many.
Right. Way too many. And when we talk about what we began the conversation about was gaining that competitive edge. Yes. These are the things that you really have to look at, like those little details, like they go such a long way with your client or your prospect, anybody you're doing business with. And I want to talk on the other half of this too, because I want to talk about also how, this also affects internally your employees. But I do want to finish this up before we transition to that. So how can a company identify if this is something that they are not, or maybe they think they're doing it well, but they're not? Like, what's a way for them to really wrap their head around this?
So there's a couple things. One is churn. You know, what's the frequency your customers are leaving you? That's a really good indicator things aren't so right. Your e-commerce channel. Are they abandoning cart? Do you know how many times they're putting items in their cart and not following through? There's a good indicator, right? It's not an easy, low level of effort to buy from you, or they can't find what they're looking for and they don't even add it to cart because it's so not optimized.
Right.
You know, there's loyalty. There's do your surveys. You know, they're real. I mean, they really do. They do give you insight. If you ask customers for feedback, they do tell you. So if they're not going to refer you, it's a good indicator. If they're not satisfied and they're rating the experience with you at any interaction point is not good, there's an indicator. And also there's the unstructured feedback, like social media and ratings reviews. Go read it and go respond. They're telling you.
Right. They're telling you exactly how they're feeling, and taking that little bit of time to go and read that and respond can really begin to start making a difference in your business. Like, you begin to start to see that impact on how such a small action could be. And if you start making that routine, you start to see that pay off.
Correct. And that's called voice of customer. You have to get the voice of your customer. So whether it's a new website design, whether it's a product or a feature, let's say you want to add a new service as part of your business. Well, you have to ask your target audience, do you see the value in this concept? Yes or no? Would you be willing to pay for this? Right? There's this constant validation in anything you do. If you don't ask the customer, you're guessing and you're throwing it out and hope it sticks. Not worth doing that.
Nope, not at all. And I think that's another great point there, is like, yeah, you just can't kind of wish it away or, you know, you really got to work at it. And it's like anything in business. You have to work at it, and you got to pay attention, and you have to listen to what people are saying. You have to ask the questions to get the correct answers.
And here's one more for you. Ready? You have to sacrifice speed for quality. So what happens is, sometimes over my career, I've worked with product teams, and they'll say, well, we got a deadline. We've got to get this out the door. And I said, well, but you got to infuse the customer. You got to bring them to the table here. Oh, no, but it's going to slow us down. I'm like, but you're going to invest all this money, and then if it's not profitable, like, you can save that now by being agile in the product development, by bringing the customer to the table now. So speed, you know, quality, it may mean that you go to market a little bit slower, but intentionally. Yeah,
very good point. And I think that a lot of times that's what it is. Like, people don't want to sacrifice the speed of things to deliver that quality, but that's it. Like, so if you're going to sacrifice one, you know, the golden rule, actions have consequences. There you go. Actions have consequences. Yes. And so you have to be prepared to deal with the consequences of the decisions that you're going to make. If you're going to say, well, we value speed over creating this experience, then you've made your choice.
Yes. Now, I'm not saying that you know, like Nike says, just do it. Okay. Mm-hmm. I do believe in that philosophy. I do believe in do it wrong quickly, but not, you know, what's the investment in, you know, up front for that. Mm-hmm. So there is this balance. And, you know, I think that there's this constant optimization and evolution. So it's not like don't start, you got to start,
Right.
But again, do your homework and talk to your buyers if you want any chance of success.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that another key part to everything you're saying and bringing it back to creating this culture is, the companies that I've seen very successful with delivering a very good, a very solid client experience, customer experience, it's part of their core values.
Yes.
Because it's embedded into their DNA and their company culture. And when you get everybody from top down buying into the same principle that makes makes your company, what it is, that's when these things happen, from start to finish. And so if you are a large corporation or if you're a small, very small company, you can still do this. And oftentimes too, you see smaller companies doing this at a much better, just executing this principle much better a lot of times than the larger corporations, because either it's forgotten about or it's written on the walls, our core values, but it's not something like we totally push. Not saying all major corporations, but a lot of times when you hear stories and great examples of people doing this, it usually seems to be on that smaller to medium business level, and somehow as it's grown, it's sort of lost a little bit.
Well, I'll tell you why. Because smaller companies have less silos. So I recommend anyone if you work in a big company and you have a customer experience job and everybody owns CX, so you do have that job, then be the glue. Be the glue to bring all the organizations together. Because guess what? When you're going to design a customer journey map, well, when you talk about how are customers going to actually learn about our product or service, guess what? That's marketing. Got to bring marketing to the table.
Right.
How's the customer going to pay? Got to bring finance to the table, right? And each department has a role.
Yep, absolutely. Very well said. And I think that's a great transition into now talking about the internal side of things. And so we're talking a lot about the customer experience, but let's talk about the employee experience.
Yes.
Because that's equally as important. And I just was right before, full disclosure, everybody, is right before I got on this live stream with Stacy, I actually just heard her speak in a room on Clubhouse where they were talking about this very subject, and it was fascinating to hear from all the different levels. So I'll let you fill in the blanks there, but I think this is very important to talk about because, and I think over this last year, more than any year that I think you and I have both been involved in professional business, is that this is the year where we're creating that internal experience and keeping things together and structured is really been pushed to the distance.
Yeah, absolutely. So internal experience, the employee experience, we can spend hours on this, but I'll try to keep it short and actionable. So number one, how you onboard your employees. I mean, same with your customers too, but that's
Right.
again another topic. How you onboard your employees. Well, guess what? Even before they're on the job, the interview process. I've been many times where I've interviewed and I never hear back from the place that I interviewed that, good, bad, nothing. Well, guess what? I might be a customer of that brand. What do you think's going to happen? I have a bad taste in my mouth. I'm not going to buy from that brand. So companies don't realize, whether you're small or large, how important the HR function is and how it affects CX. That's one thing. Secondly, once somebody is on board, how important it is that people feel welcomed. So immediately, is my computer there? Do I have a phone? Am I able to even work? Have you shown me around? That's part of onboarding.
Right.
And I've had great experiences where the company sent me a a really nice goodie bag to my home and welcome to the family. And that was a wow moment. That was a couple years ago. I still talk about it.
Right.
And then I've had the complete opposite. So what I'm getting at is there's an employee journey. And so it's got to be done right, because guess what? The customer sees it and feels it too. And so it has to be intentional. Bosses have to listen. They have to listen and they have to empathize. And one of my favorite things that I'll do with my team is that the book Simon Sinek, Start with the Why. I really focus on understanding their personal why. If they don't know it, I help them figure it out.
Right.
And so by me knowing their why and them knowing my why, there's no cookie cutter approach. Each person, what their needs are, pre-COVID, during COVID, and eventually post-COVID, it is not all the same. So for all the listeners, know your people's why and figure out how can you show up for them in the way that they want you to be there. And that's how you get employee loyalty. That's how you get customer excellence and people doing the right thing, even when the boss isn't looking.
Yeah, very well said on that. And I agree 100% with everything you said. And a conversation that I had an opportunity to listen in on just before this was you talking about this very subject and blending the generations of Gen X and Gen Z. And I thought that was very fascinating, because in that conversation, there were so many great topics brought up. And it's so true. I mean, even right down to like the level of communication, how to, with email versus like direct messaging, all these types of things. But this is, what comes into that, and understanding it, and instead of choosing to say, I'm just going to ignore how that works, or it will too bad. This is how we do it. That's not necessarily going to work anymore. The days of saying, well, that's just too bad. That's the way we do it here. So either, get with the program or get out. Well, I think more and more, okay, fine, I'll get out. Like, okay, sure.
Yes. So we have to Gen X.
Yeah.
I have to think about the letters. Gen X.
I know. I love that. It's yes, X.
So Gen X, right, and I'm a parent of Gen Z, of two Gen Zs. So I realize we have Gen X has a lot to learn from Gen Z.
Yeah.
And Gen Z has a lot to learn from Gen X. And we all have learned a lot to learn from each other generational anyway, but these two in particular, we have to figure out how do we collaborate, because our styles of communication are so different. How do I, as a boss or a colleague, be able to support their growth coming into the workforce? And, the way that many in that generation had parents who were, oohed and awed over them and prevented their mistakes. Whereas, Gen X, my generation, we used a payphone and no one knew where we were pretty much ever. And
pretty much.
And we were playing outside or taking a train to New York City with no cell phone.
Yeah. That was it. Yeah. Literally, that was it. Yeah. It was just like, what? You just hoped for the best.
Right. There was
Call me when you get to a phone.
And don't forget your quarters.
Yeah. Don't forget the quarters. You're walking around jangling pockets.
So the truth is, right, if they're not looking at email very much,
it's true.
And we're learning to stop looking at email so much. Like, how do we work together?
Right. Yeah, it's a great point, and it's what you said. It is it's learning from each other as to how, because this is, we all have to work together. So there's a lot to be learned from both sides. I mean, I will say, you know, I've learned a ton from my kids. I have a 21-year-old and a 17-year-old here, and you know, I watch them. We collaborate on stuff, and you know, they learn from me as much as I learn from them. And everything that was being discussed in that room that I heard was all stuff I'm super familiar with. Like, and I know how they want to be communicated with, and I get it and use it. You know, they're upstairs and I'm downstairs, and they're using FaceTime to call me. Like you're upstairs. It's not even a text. No, it's FaceTime. Like,
yes, I mean, it is a totally different way of thinking. And guess what? Even when we go to their style of communication, so texting, they have their own codes. So for example, if I ever wrote the word K, they're like, what's wrong? Like if I'm answering a question like, okay, I'll say K. No, no, it has to be KK. I'm like, 2 Ks, not 1 K? Like,
nope, 2.
do you know that rule? I mean,
I do. Yes, it has to be 2. It has to be the double K. Otherwise, it's kind of like,
you're so bad.
Yeah. Like, whoa, what did I do? And I'm like, so yes, I learned that.
So there you go. Even if we go to their level of communication, it has its own meaning. So how do we all play together in the sandbox? And it's confusing, but we have to figure it out. And we need to drive more kindness in the workplace, which is what we were talking about in the room.
Yes, which that was another great point.
Yeah. So employee experience is definitely multi-generational.
Yes.
And it's shifting. And guess what? Our customers are also multi-generational.
Yes, they are.
All right. So
absolutely. Yep.
We have to get smarter.
Yeah, it's you couldn't be more right on the money with that one, because it's so true. Like, I think once again, assumption is that the picture of client in, you know, the ownership's mind, leadership or whatever, is this picture of someone who's been buying from them for years. But like, well, that person ages and somebody eventually comes in and takes their place. And guess what? They don't have the same actions that person did for 20 plus years. That person's younger and they're doing things differently.
Yes.
And they're, you know, and you have to be able to learn to evolve and adapt with that. And just saying, well, we're just going to keep doing it the same way we've been doing it, it just doesn't work. It doesn't work. And that's, you said another great word earlier on, was the humanization of things. And I was part of a mini con a few months back where we called it Humanize Your Brand, because it is so important to do that. Like, being able to humanize your brand, share your stories, open up, be transparent. Like, this is from both sides of the fence. Like you were saying, from an employee standpoint, yes, they want that support. They need that nurturing, and, you know, things like mental wellness is a priority. It's as much of a priority as the physical. You can't have one without the other. And once again, you can't just sweep it under the carpet and pretend it doesn't exist and just not deal with it, or say, oh, too bad, that's your problem, not mine. Like, that just doesn't exist anymore. And then same thing with the client side, is they want to see this. They want to see that the people that they're doing business with are serious, that they are taking care of their employees, that these are priorities for them, because they want to know that they're supporting a company that believes in similar values that they have, that they find to be important. So this is why it's like, it's so important for both things to really work together, and then for companies to share that and be transparent that this is what they're doing on both levels.
Yes. So I do want to dig into it. One thing you said, especially because I think it's April is stress management awareness, and May, I think, is mental health.
Yeah.
And we need to be really conscious of their mental challenges in a COVID world. Their lives have been totally talk about rocked. I mean, right? As has ours. And how do we all be we're all guessing, we're all figuring it out, and
Yeah.
the conversations have to happen.
Yeah, so important, because it's exactly it. It's not like this is something we've all experienced every few years. I mean, this is, last time this was experienced on a global level was what, 1913, 19 is it's like, I mean, that's the last time that anything like this of this magnitude was experienced. So we're all doing it together. We're all figuring it out together. We're all in the same boat. And yes, it's to say one generation has been affected more than another. But it's also on a very individualized basis as well. And it needs to be talked about. It needs to be addressed. And you have to, we all got to watch out for each other. It's really important.
And that comes back to listening. So I'm listening to my team. I'm listening to my colleagues, and I'm paying attention when someone needs space or when they need closeness, and really knowing the difference. And it could change each day. And so it is that emotional intelligence. It's that every intelligence. And we need that more in the workplace and as we service our customers, because at the end of the day, it's people buy from people, people choose people they trust. And when they feel valued, that's when the magic happens.
Yep, absolutely. Well said. So before we wrap it up, Stacy, I want to thank you so much for spending time with us today and sharing all your expertise and insights with me and the whole audience here. What's the best way for people to get a hold of you? I know I've been flashing a website up here as we've been going along, but say it all out loud. Where can people connect with you? I think you have like an ebook or something like that. So promote it all.
Yes. So DoingCXRight.com is where you'll find tons of resources and tips. My newsletter, there's no cost to it, just lots of value, really giving value and mentoring people. It's all on my website. You'll see the Forbes articles I'm writing. There's 2 books I've co-authored. And again, just keep following me, because if you found value in this conversation, I'm living and breathing CX minus sleep hours and parenting hours. And I just love it. I want everybody to embrace it.
Absolutely. And I think you're definitely, everything that we talked about today is so important. And it's very obvious that you're very passionate about what you do. And I think that's half the battle right there. So I definitely urge everybody out there who is watching this and listening to this to definitely connect with Stacy. Go visit our website. All the links will be in the show notes, so you can easily click on any of them and it'll take you to all of Stacy's links, her website, and everything that she's about, and make it very easy for you to connect with her. So with that, I want to thank everybody once again for watching another episode of Rocket Live. Really appreciate each and every one of you. Thanks for watching the live show. Thank you for watching the replays. And thank you for listening on the audio version of this when it is released. As we do, we are live every Tuesday. Come join us. We normally start at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we'll be back next week with another amazing guest. We'll see you guys soon. And always remember, be authentic, be yourself, and always remember to rock it.